Hey everyone, Romans is here and we're back with another episode, and today we have a slightly different guest. He's not a brand owner, he's also not a marketer per se, but he's running a consultancy firm that helps other digital marketing agencies scale with systems. Now, if you've been into marketing and social media for quite a while, you might have seen quite a few of these on social media, but trust me, this guy has got all the credentials and the authority to do it, because he's a former COO of Welling Media, which is a quite established creative agency in the North America, and we're going to dive into all things systems, automations, mindset, and operations for agencies as well as for brands. So without further ado, welcome Joshua Johnston. Hi Josh, it's a pleasure to have you on. It would be great to ask you a bunch of different questions around your experience, everything from obviously being as much as I am aware, operational director at Welling Media, if I'm not mistaken, helping obviously D2C brands, working with a lot of businesses, all the way up to running your own consultancy, an agency, and helping other agencies organize their operations. So there is a lot to cover.
There's a lot there.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to dive into everything, within 1 hour, but let's try to just talk about your experience, how you started, how kind of tell us a little bit about what made you make that move from working with an agency to helping agencies, and how do you help other businesses?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think it'd probably be beneficial for me to give just a little bit of my background. So, past chief operating officer of an agency called Welling Media, primarily specialized in content creation for D2C e-commerce brands, and we also had like a paid ads team as well, and then we also had social media management team as well. But what we were really known for was creating content. And so we worked with about 60 brands, when I was there creating content, and had the opportunity to grow and scale that in 2 years to roughly about $4 million in revenue across 60 different brands. And after that 2 years, we underwent an acquisition back in December of last year. So coming up on 1 year now, and had the opportunity to exit that company. After the exit, decided to take a step away from the agency space and move into what I'm doing now, which is consulting digital marketing agencies on systems and operations and helping them cash flow more profitably or get in a better place for an acquisition. So that's kind of brings you up to speed with where I am now, which is a very brief and fast explanation of everything that's kind of happened within the last year. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at now. And man, it's a ton of fun. We work with about 30 different agencies all across the world, anywhere from Australia to here in the US to Europe. So we're all over as far as like the people that we consult, and we consult on a wide variety of different agencies, anything from website developers, designers, to other content studios, to people that do paid media or have the full scope. They have everything in house. They're full service agencies. So it's very broad with who we serve, but at the same time, it's very niche of we only serve digital marketing agencies. So,
right. Is there a particular problem that you focus on most when it comes to helping agencies streamline their operations?
Good question. It's one of those things that it depends on the size of the agency. We do work with some agencies that are really starting to gain traction. So I'd say probably like $20,000 to $40,000 a month is what they're generating, and they're trying to get to that next level. And so a lot of those conversations do revolve around lead generation and sales and being able to attract the right clients. But also on the back end, we also focus on fulfillment for those people of can they actually deliver the results they say they're going to deliver on the sales side? And so those are normally the things we probe into with that scale agencies doing 100K plus. The thing that we often see is staffing is the hardest part, finding the right people, putting the right people in the right seats, and then having systems to make people, almost like a machine, pretty much of just it's easy to implement. It's easy to get a team onboarded, and we can kind of get these things moving very fast and fluid, and making sure that anyone coming in, they know exactly what their roles, responsibilities, and how the company thinks, the culture, making sure that they're in alignment when they first start with the company. So that's what I'm seeing kind of on my side of some of the really difficult issues, but it does revolve back to how big is the agency. And then, that there's normally different problems that they're going to see at different scale. So
it's interesting. I want to dive into a couple of things here, actually. One of them is, what have you noticed any type of change in terms of how agencies are being run?
Yeah.
I guess built over the past several years, everything from Willing Media, because obviously this is where you've done it. I guess not for the first time. Well, I don't know for the first time or not, but this is where you've done it at scale quite successfully. Sure. Has anything changed since then in terms of how agencies have been built?
Yeah. I mean, this last year, as most of us know, has been a rude awakening for a lot of different agency owners. So, it kind of falls back to people being actually good marketers, right? Good marketers will win in this climate that we're seeing currently. So, it goes back to a lot of the fundamentals, like great copywriting and good content creation and having a really attractive offer and a really good product, right? Like all of those things are so important to your ability to actually sell something. Whereas in the Facebook marketplace before, like back in the heyday, back in the 2018, 2017 days, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. It was easy to be an agency, and you didn't necessarily need all of these marketing tactics. Like you could find the right people to buy your product, and you could put together an okay offer and it's still land okay. So with that being said, there's a lot of things that are changing on that side, obviously, and I think a lot of people have realized that. But one thing that I'm seeing across the space currently is just with all the attribution issues that we've seen in the space with Facebook and really any platform on Apple in that case. But things that we're starting to see is more of like a holistic view of how agencies are coming on board with their partners, which is, I'm seeing a lot of agencies transition into, instead of just using like a Hyros or, a Google's attribution windows, like I'm seeing people look more into the company's actual like profit and loss statements and understanding their COGS and understanding all the intricacies of the financial pieces that go into the business. And they're more acting like a fractional chief marketing officer, right?
Yeah,
and they're
becoming almost as business consultants for their clients.
Exactly. And the ones that are doing this are absolutely crushing it for their clients because they understand how the business is being run. And then I'm also saying, this like really cool transition with some of the larger agencies where they've either started in the e-commerce space, and this is for D2C e-commerce, obviously, but they started in the e-commerce space and then they transitioned into an agency. So they have a ton of experience on like, what they're looking for. And then vice versa. I see a lot of agencies transitioning into e-com as well. So they can get a little bit more experience. So they can understand their client a little bit better. So it's really cool to kind of see how the space has evolved and how people have taken it to the next level through offering, different services or, advancing the way that they're able to communicate with their clients and actually look at their numbers and look at their P&L. And so that's one of the big transitions I've seen in the past year is more of a holistic look at the brands that they're working with.
Very, very, very interesting. We're saying that because that's the approach that we've taken, but not because of, partially because of obviously the iOS and everything that's happening this year, but also because we kind of organically grow into the position ourselves. And it's interesting to understand or try to understand your client's business more than they do. And that's the promise that we bring to our consultancy, discovery calls, where we try to to get to sort of a deeper under the skin of our client's business, understand what's happening, and it's certainly one of the ways we're doing it. Although it comes with a little bit more of overhead in terms of timing, and I guess the scope of work is not really defined. Is there a way to not automated, that's the wrong question. Is there a way to instill a process within there? Or do you think it actually takes quite a bit of time to learn how to understand your clients' businesses from a P&L perspective or from a finance perspective before you start creating processes around it?
Yeah, I think you have to understand it for yourself first. No. So if you can't do it for your own business, like, how are you going to do it for someone else's? So, understanding it for your own business first, and then expanding it and into other businesses, I think is the best way to do it. It does take time. It takes, studying and there's like not a lot of like great playbooks out there for learning, like operational efficiency, like looking at a P&L and being able to dissect like, hey, like, these are the levers we need to pull on the marketing side. And these are the things that we need to cut back on the expense side. And so there's not really a playbook out there for it, which there's literature out there. It's it's not sexy, and it's not a
Not at
whole
all.
lot of fun to read. And so it does take some time to learn those things, and it does take some application too, and actually
Yeah.
doing it. So, you know, if you're not doing it currently, just the best way to get into it is, you know, try to find some people that have done it before, and are kind of like a little bit more advanced. And if you're not sure, like there are a lot of resources out there for you to learn those things. You just have to take the time to actually do it.
Yeah, would you say it's wise to bring in a person who would be able to do this kind of thing for the, well, obviously for the agency in the first place, but then for the agency's clients,
Hmm.
if as a founder you're more inclined to be a marketing person, creative person, or the salesperson, but you're not the operational type of person?
Hmm.
Or is
Yeah,
it still, I mean, I understand that it's possible to acquire new skills and stack
sure.
up new skills, but that takes time as well.
Yeah.
What would you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, if I kind of reflect on our
Mm.
my agency experience, our CEO brought me on as the second employee, and knew that I was very operationally minded. And I didn't really have any experience as a chief operating officer. I didn't have any experience in marketing, but I love to learn, and I would just consume content like mad, and try to apply it to what we were doing. And so, you know, whereas in our CEO was more of like the gunslinger, like I'm going to go sell the world and, you know, be the face of the company. And, you know,
Yeah.
it was a huge part of the reason that we were able to scale so quickly, because he was just the face of everything, and
Yeah.
he was great at the sales piece. And when you have, you know, people that can interact like that, where you kind of have someone that is like the balance and the person, making sure that the fulfillment is actually happening, and making sure everything stays in check. And then you have the other person on the other side that's just like, hey, like we're going to go and we're going to sell until, you know, we're blue in the face. It's nice to have that balance and that
Yeah.
counterpart. So 100% you can bring those people on. You know, you just have to understand the type of person that you need for like an operating role is much different than yourself. Like if you hire a bunch of you into your company, it's like there's going to be some holes that need to be filled. So yeah, that's the route we went. Like we literally went from, you know, CEO
Mm.
and then operator, and then we started hiring out the team. So there's a bunch of different ways to do it. That's how we decided to do it, and it worked out pretty well. I had
Right.
to learn a lot in my first 2 years of operating the business, because I wasn't familiar with the space at all. I wasn't familiar with, you know, actually running 25 person team. So, or even
Yeah.
what to do,
Okay.
even what to do with that much money. You know, it's
Can
like you
imagine.
learn a lot.
Yes. Would you, okay, going back to, I guess, the fact that agency business model is labor intensive.
Very.
And labor is probably one of the, as Naval Ravikant says, labor is one of the oldest or old school ways of business leverage. And do you see that there is maybe a trend for smaller agencies or micro agencies
Mhm.
um, leveraging tech rather than labor, or leveraging automations, or like, because personally I am more inclined in using or learning tech or learning automation
Sure.
or attracting high level talent rather than building a 50 or 100 people agency.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yes, there's so much technology out there now that you can automate, you know, a lot of your processes, and there's certain things that will still require, you know, some labor behind it. But like there's so many like cool softwares out there like Zapier and Integromat that will allow you
Mm.
to like do like your onboarding process completely automated. Like you don't even have to touch any of that. You know, reports can get automated, you know, with like one click of a button pretty much. So there's so many things that you can automate nowadays that you can, you know, essentially help replace a lot of the labor within your agency. So yeah, absolutely, there's definitely been a big shift in that over
Mm.
the last couple of years. Even when we started, you know, like all these like new like automation features were coming out, and project management software started popping up everywhere. And you know, so for us, like we used a lot of those automations within our agency, and they were extremely helpful.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's, as an agency, obviously there are different reasons for why people start agencies, and a lot of the micro agencies or small agencies that are popping out are there because they see a trend in the e-commerce game, or you can make money off helping e-commerce businesses and so on and so
Hmm.
forth. I think as we are trying to mature ourselves as a business as well, I'm recognizing that agency is actually, well, in my view, it's my definition of an agency, is it's basically it's an R&D team, a highly process-driven R&D team that goes out there, finds resources, or finds that tries to solve a problem with the resources that it's got, but also with the resources that it still need to find in order to solve the problem. And we found ourselves in a lot of different situations where we've had to develop the skill of the research and development for our clients and for their businesses, because the scope of work, like even just running ads, Facebook ads, you do realize that there are a lot of problems that's then on the way between you as an agency and the client, and getting that results for them, because some of the things that need solving, some of the problems that need solving aren't always being communicated, or even the client doesn't even know they exist. That's probably one of the biggest pitfalls, but also interesting moments of that business model. So yeah, I mean, how do you see that, if you were to, I guess, recommend a way out or a way around it? Because I know there are a lot of things that are not being talked about on social media, and a lot of people just talk about the fancy or the nice part of running an agency model, when in reality there are a lot of hidden and unspoken truths of what was it like. Is there anything that do you have these conversations with your clients?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. I've worked with in total probably like 40 to 45 different agencies now. And I've yet to meet one that hasn't struggled in some sort of sense. Even the ones that are doing $1 million months. Like they have their problems and they have their struggles, and their CEOs are just as stressed out as you are. So yeah, like to social media obviously does a nice job of doctoring up all the problems in everyone's lives. So it's definitely not, it is very lucrative, and there's a lot of big opportunity in the space, but at the same time, there's also a lot of sacrifice and a lot of difficulty you have to kind of battle through in order to get to the point where, you can have a business that can generate $1 million a year. So
and be profitable.
Be profitable.
Relatively profitable.
Yeah. And the profitability piece is, in my opinion, a lot of people struggle with it in the agency space, but it's not that difficult. Like your only expense really is labor, like that's your biggest expense. And like, you have some other expenses as well, but I think e-commerce is probably harder than agency is, because e-commerce is like, you got cost of goods, you have cost of labor, probably have to store things places. So it's like, you could do an agency completely remote, have very little overhead. It's like you're just paying for people at that point. So there's really not a reason for agencies not to be profitable. It's just the scale that they're trying to go at. And sometimes they don't hire at the right time, or they don't utilize freelancers in the right way. And they kind of shoot themselves in the foot, if that makes sense, because they think that they've hit this new level of growth and they just haven't yet,
Yes,
so
I can relate.
Sure.
Yes, absolutely. There are many times when I thought that we've hit a certain level of growth, but it was just I perceived it that way. When in reality, we were just trying to figure out how to solve a certain problem, or as a one man sort of, as I don't have any co-founders, and actually I've spoken to enough of there was a question that I've kind of put out on social media asking, hey, how many people out there who are one-man co-founders, like who don't have any co-founders in the agency. One-man founders, what I meant to say. And a lot of people that I've spoken to are stressed out, the ones who are running the agencies by themselves without any co-founders, actually quite stressed, because they try to wear so many hats at the same time. And there is a psychological sort of effect to it, because the ones who have been running the agency for years, they seem to have that notion, hey, I'm kind of wearing off. I've been in the game for such a long time, and it's not that inspiring to see them. It's as if their vision or their sort of initial excitement for an agency kind of wears off, and they end up not having, I don't know, energy or enthusiasm for growing the business. Because at one point I was kind of considering, but do I need a co-founder? Does it have importance? Am I taking agencies to a certain level where it's a must, or can I just hire people and grow within the business and they can take over certain processes? There was also a lot of questions around that. I'm just curious when it comes to, I guess, the psychological effect or well-being effect, sustaining good level of well-being. Is there anything that you notice people successful founders, but also the ones who are more or less happy, or
Mm-hmm.
I guess they've been able to create that peace of mind
Yeah.
running a successful agency. Is there anything that you notice?
Yeah, I would say the ones that have a little bit more better work life balance per se would be the ones that can actually delegate work away and be
Mm,
able to not let their egos get in the way of work going out, or they let their teams make mistakes and learn from them. And because at the end of the day, it's like, this business is meant to be in service to you. You're not meant to be in service to your business. So we really challenge our CEOs to start moving away from fulfillment and allow your team to take place of
right.
you there. And even if they're only doing it at 80-85% of what you could potentially do it at, it's like, it's still worth delegating away. Your clients probably will not see too much of a difference of service there, and you'll keep a majority of your clients. It's like, yeah, like you do lose some clients every once in a while due to the quality of work not being where it is, but that's part of learning as an agency, and
Yeah.
that's part of your team learning. And it's like, you'll always be capped with your growth potential if you're the person doing all the work and making all the decisions. Like, eventually you have to delegate those things away. Otherwise you'll be stuck in the same place.
That's a good piece of advice.
Yeah.
And I can relate to it as well. It's just for me running an agency has become more of a I don't know, personally, a spiritual journey.
Sure.
Because this is how I get to develop myself, I guess, as a person, as an entrepreneur as well. Can you tell a little bit about, like, maybe your do you have any relationship with personal development, or does it help you in some way or another
Yeah.
to, I guess, grow your consultancy, and as a result of that, pass on that knowledge to your clients?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, as far as like my development goes, it's never ending. There's always something there. There's always a book on my bookshelf that I haven't read yet. It's one of those things where you just have to continue to invest in yourself, because I don't know, you're never there yet. You're never done growing. So yeah, it's something that I invest a lot of time and money into. I think this year we'll spend close to 40K in just personal development resources, masterminds, courses, books, all those things. It's like, we're always growing, and that attributes to a lot of our success and our growth and our ability to consult people in a really high level fashion, is
Mm,
our ability to learn and to be able to share what we learned, and obviously turn it into our own intellectual property, but be able to share those things and solidify it in our own brains of, like, hey, like, these are things that we've learned, experiences that we've had, and how can
mm.
we teach other agencies, you know to either avoid the mistakes we've made, or take some of those learnings that we've had and be able to apply it to a curriculum of some sort.
Right. Is there, how to make a choice whether this is the right thing to invest into, whether it's this the right educational resource, or that whether
Yeah.
there's right masterclass and mastermind? Is it just coming from your network? Or do experiments and, I don't know, kind of for a 10
Yeah.
week meditation course or something?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there are certain things that you're going to want to try and, fill your cup up. So like, there'll be like tactical things. So a lot of my personal development, especially when it comes to like reading or consuming any resources, tactically, what am I consuming? So things that are directly correlated to my ability to consult agencies better. So it's like, what are the tactical things that I can learn that I can go and apply to other agencies? So those are things that we,
Mm,
pay attention to. There's also like more like general knowledge. So things like leadership tactics and mindset and just becoming a better person overall. Things like fitness and so like what resources are you consuming there to make yourself a better person overall? And then I think there's a lot to be said for just having fun with a lot of the things that you're consuming as well. Like, don't be afraid to dip into fiction or dip
mm,
into other other things that pique your interest, because there's a lot of lessons that can be learned through those things, and a lot of connections that can tie back to business that you can't make through something that's more tactical or more like general knowledge. So yeah, but as far as like picking what we want to learn, like, yeah, like, we're very dialed in on what we're consuming.
selective.
Yeah, exactly. Selective is a good word for it, because everything has an algorithm behind it now. And it's like, the algorithm will choose what you learn if you don't choose it yourself. So it's like, you do have to be very protective on what you consume, because a lot of times like your algorithm will choose it for you, especially if you're someone that consumes YouTube podcasts, things like that. Like, yeah, they put things in front of you they think you're gonna like. And it's like, yeah, it might be something good, but it could be a huge waste of time as well. So
How do you make sure you protect your sort of I guess space, informational space?
yeah, so I have a document that I have written out in Notion of all the things that I'm currently consuming or want to consume in the future. And so I quite literally plan out my learning. It's like
Okay.
I almost have like a syllabus, like you're back in school, and it's like, hey, like this is the journey over the next 3 months per se. Like these are the books that I'm going to read. This is, these
How,
are some of the things that I'm going to consume. This is the mastermind I'm planning on joining, things like that. So yeah, like quite literally like just planning out exactly what you're going to learn.
how do you decide what to put into that syllabus? Is it based on your experience or based on what people, maybe people that you trust that recommend stuff? Or
Yeah, it's a combination of both. There's definitely things in there that like really pique my interest and like I really want to read this or I really want to consume this. And then other people recommend things to me too that I've never heard of before. I'm like, oh, that's an awesome resource. Like I would love to dive into that one. And so, you kind of like fit things in and you organize them based off of what you feel is the most urgent and yeah, so like it's kind of like an ever evolving list. It's never something that's just like done. Like it's always
it's
evolving.
always
So
there.
yep.
I've never thought of creating syllabus, to be honest. It's smart. I like this because I tend to keep most of my stuff in my phone in the app called Evernote. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, fun fact is that I was hacked. My app was
Oh
hacked
no.
like a couple months ago. Yeah, so weird. Somebody logged in from South America, and I had all my stupidly I had all my password and logins saved in the app. So let's
Yeah.
never store any of the passwords in apps that have kind of not public access but can be easily hacked.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, we've been I really, changed how I was consuming content over the last month or so. And we use a couple of different apps. So we use Notion to record like any note taking that we have like for certain books, but there's a really cool app called Readwise. And Readwise allows you to connect to apps like Kindle or you can also connect to like Apple Books and anything that you highlight within Kindle or Apple Books, you can it will automatically translate that into a note for you. And so I used to spend a lot of time just annotating notes into my Notion board, and it was like it would take a decent amount of time. Like for every hour that I would read, it would be like probably 15 to 20 minutes of like notes that I would have to like dump into there. And so now I have this really cool, unique process where whatever I'm reading in Kindle, if there's something that like a takeaway or something, I can highlight it. I can highlight it a certain color if it means something different of like, hey, like this is just a good takeaway, or hey, this is like something we need to apply to our business. I can highlight it based off of, a certain color. And so I'll highlight it and then it will automatically get dumped into our Notion board. And it actually connects with Evernote as well, which is pretty cool. And so you can do the same thing in Evernote, but it's been a huge game changer. I've been able to consume content and apply it much faster with that. And now I don't have to actually write out physical notes
right.
Or type out physical notes. So
I like this because I do tend to order a lot of books from Amazon. They put them on the shelf for a good feeling of the fact that I've got books to read.
Yeah, man. Your bookshelf is a reflection of who you want to be. So it's good to have books on your shelf that you haven't read yet.
True, but now I recognize the importance and the value of having notes stored somewhere electronically, especially on my laptop or my mobile phone. When especially when I travel, when I travel somewhere, interestingly enough, in that sort of state of mind, which is much more open to new ideas, when you quite reflexive in its own sense. So when I have access to my sort of to notes, I pull them out and I think through the things that I used to think maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, and kind of reflect on where I'm at now.
Sure.
And now you're telling me that it's very interesting because I usually take books That one of the latest books is that I picked up is by Freud, which is classics. But when I read it, I just highlight stuff. But I'm just too lazy to obviously copy paste it
Sure.
into.
And then
yeah.
Readwise also has an application on the phone, and you can actually snap a picture of the page that you're reading. And if there's a note in there, you can actually highlight the note with that on that picture, and it will dump it into Notion for you.
Is it part of Notion or?
No, so that's the Readwise. So Readwise is like the app that will actually like take the note that you took, either highlighted in Kindle, or you took a picture of a page and then you highlighted like a certain sentence from that page, and it will dump it into Notion for you.
I found it. I didn't know. This is really cool.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a really cool app. I think it's like $7.99 a month. In my opinion, relatively cheap for what it actually does for you. So
it's definitely useful. Cool. So talking about personal development and obviously running a business, running an agency business, what would you is there anything that maybe there's an underlying principle of running an effective business? Maybe you've seen that a particular type of founder, agency founder, who focuses on a bigger mission, or maybe it's to do with just systematizing and automating your agency. What is there a certain pattern, or maybe a quality or a skill you've noticed that perhaps is a must, or is something that is hard to attain but attributes to the success of the business?
It kind of just goes back to, if you take care of your clients are going to take care of you. So so you need to be able to generate results for your clients. If you can't generate results, then you have to go back to the drawing board and fix that piece, because without that, you'll never scale an agency, because your churn rate will be too high. It doesn't matter how many leads you really get. Like, you'll be dropping clients as fast as you're signing them. So if you want to grow an agency, if you want to be really good, if you want to be admired within the industry, it's like, do well by your clients. Don't worry about how many leads you have coming in. Don't worry about landing, a bunch of sales. Get your 4 to 5, retainer clients when you start, and, make them your priority. And if you win for them, you will get introduced to more clients. It will happen. It's just how it works, because people pay attention to those things. Because say you owned a brand that I was servicing, and we were crushing it for you, and we increased your revenue by 100K per month in your business, people would take notice of that. Maybe they asking you like, Roman's, like, how is business going? And you'd be like, it's going great. Like, we're crushing it. We literally increased our revenue 400% this year. And they're like, well, what are you doing different? Oh, well, I'm working with Josh. He's a digital marketing agency. He's been killing it for us. Like, oh, like, really? Like, my agency's not killing it for us right now. Can you make an introduction for me? And then just like that, boom. Like, that's the easiest sale you'll ever land in your entire life, is someone that's coming in that hot. And, they know about you. They've instilled trust already, because they've heard it from someone else that they trust. And so it's such an easy sale to land. And if you can get in that mindset of just, I'm going to serve my clients and we're going to win for them. And if they do actually win, it's crazy, man. It's a snowball effect. It just keeps going. So so focus on that. Don't focus on lead gen too much. Like, eventually it's like, like if you want to go fast, like you will need some lead gen tactics in there, but I don't know. I think you can grow plenty fast. That's how we grew our agency. We grew to 4 million in 2 years. So
referrals. No, basically referrals.
All referrals. Yep. Referrals. Like, we just put ourselves in the right rooms, and we made the right connections, and we landed probably 3 clients that were kind of like more like a VIP status for us. One of those being, for example, snow teeth whitening. Yeah. And they opened the floodgates for us. I mean, they brought us so much work, because they were like, hey, like, who's doing your content? Like, oh, like, Welling Media is. And it was like, it just opened the floodgate to everything that we were doing. So, that was the true reason behind our scale. And when you can have a great name in the industry, you'll win. So
but you had built your way up to that client, to snow teeth.
Oh yeah. When we signed them, we actually signed them as a white label, and they didn't even know we existed. And then eventually they got fired. That white label got fired because they were doing the paid media. We were doing the creative. They got fired from that paid media position. And we just reached out to them after, and they're like, hey, like, we were working with them directly. We were like, hey, like, we you guys have been loving the creative we've been putting out. Like, we're sorry it didn't work out on the paid media side for you guys, but we're actually a creative agency, and we've been doing this for you guys the whole time. Like, is there an opportunity for us to work together? And they were stoked. Like, yeah, absolutely. Like, we can 100% still work together. And so we did that, and we worked with them for, they're like almost the entire 2 years. And their brand blew up. Like, we came on board with them when, before they even, had a made it moment. And then, it's kind of crazy what happens. Like, that client blew up, and now they're one of the biggest e-com brands in the country. So
yeah, that's
in the world, probably.
In the world.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
So a kind of a definition of e-commerce success.
Yep.
To be honest, that's amazing. Yeah, I think these kind of stories definitely inspire people to work harder and make sure that clients are being taken care of. And I agree with you 100%. And looking back at what we've been doing so far, it's 100%, 99.9% reflection of how of our client success. We don't grow if our clients don't grow, but it also comes with, I guess, its own challenges, because when you're trying to help the client, but you clearly see, or you're trying to be as less biased as possible about how you've worked, what delivery you've done, you've come to a position where you recognize perhaps it's less to do with your delivery, but more to do with how your client's business is organized, or the processes that have been put in, or the person who is responsible for, let's say, certain things on the client side of business. Is there a certain practice or procedure, or is there something that maybe you can prevent at the very, very beginning before even signing client up?
Yeah. Every agency system is going to be slightly different. I don't think there's, necessarily something that's going to keep you from, I guess, failing immediately. But, the biggest thing is just communication is the biggest, like, internally, and then also with your clients. If communication is poor, there's nothing that will get a client to leave faster than you not getting back to them quickly. So that's like one of the first things that I tend to look at in businesses, like, hey, like, how are you communicating, one, with your team, but also how are you communicating with your clients? I've met a few agencies, it's like they won't get back to clients, for like 48 hours sometimes. And I'm just like, that kind of stuff would drive me nuts. I'm someone that, like, prides myself on fast communication, being able to get back to people quickly. So, it's my personal pet peeve, but at the same time, it's like your clients want to be heard. And even if you don't have the answer, even if you don't have, what they need right in that moment, at least let them know that they're heard, like, just be like, hey, like, we're on it, or we're looking for a fix to it right now, or we're looking for the resource, just give us a little bit, and we'll get back to you. So, and that way, like, at least some communication happened there, even if it's not ready, or even if you need a couple more days, like, let them know, like, hey, like, this is taking a little bit longer than expected. We're going to need an extra 24 hours. Is that okay with you? 99% of the time, they're going to be like, yeah, it's totally fine. Like, thanks for the update. But, hopefully we can attack those things even before they happen. Like, the worst is when you get a message from a client and it's like, hey, where is this? That should never be the case. You should never have an instance where they're reaching out to you looking for something. If something is not going to hit a deadline, they need to know about that. And they need to know as soon as you know, right? And so that way you can go into it and be like, hey, like, just a heads up, this creative is going to be, a day late, 2 days late. We ran into some issues on production. Okay, great. Like, as long as they know that ahead of time, they can at least plan for it, and that they're not going to be as upset about that than, them reaching out to be like, hey, where is this? And you're like, oh yeah, like, yeah, it's going to be a little bit late. Sorry. It's two totally different stances,
Self accountability is huge.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's interesting. I just had a conversation with someone about accountability as well, accountability and responsibility, which also is a highly, which accountability is supposed to be a skill. It's not even a skill. It's supposed to be norm, or by default, a service provider or business should put some, I guess, systems and process in place to make sure that the team understands accountability, and something that I'm working on myself and with my team, kind of developing a system for accountability. And what I've realized that not just in the Asian space, across, I guess, different industries and different businesses, especially SaaS and tech, where you find teams that are the highest performing teams are the ones that have higher standards for self accountability. Interesting enough, it's something that drives not just growth, it drives clients growth. And as you said, communication becomes much more streamlined. You don't have to explain yourself when things things go sideways.
Yep, exactly.
Cool. Is there anything that you're aspiring to? Is there maybe a vision or perhaps objective for your business as a consultant? Perhaps, I don't know, help X amount of agencies or make a certain impact or difference in that industry?
Yeah. Obviously, we want to grow and scale agencies and help them realize like you can be extremely profitable with this, and it doesn't have to be a hustle, and it doesn't have to be you sacrificing time with family and friends, and it can be something that has a flexible schedule around it. It's like you just have to get the people in place, and like initially it's tough, and there is some sacrifice that needs to be made on the front end, but it doesn't forever have to be like that. And so I think even agencies that are really successful, there's a lot of founders that are still grinding away, and they've been doing it for years. And so there is an escape from it, and it doesn't have to be that way. So, I would say like, that's like kind of like one of our, big visions for the agencies that we work with. But as far as like where we see the company going in the future, there's a big opportunity for us to also get into the e-commerce space and help with operational tactics. And we're still learning that side, and hence why we haven't launched it yet. But there's definitely some opportunity there for us to get in the e-commerce space and help people on that side. And then there's a really big opportunity once we do that of, marrying the two together of, e-com brands acquiring agencies and agencies acquiring e-com brands. And so there's definitely a cool play coming down the road. It'll be a minute, but that's kind of like where we're setting our sights in the future.
There's a lot of opportunity in both directions. I'd say, knowing our clients' businesses and how difficult it could be to run operations. So that's certainly something that needs help. And it's also interesting that you've picked on the fact that a lot of agencies want to either acquire brands or maybe build brands from scratch. There's a whole notion of building a incubator style agency, which is something that I'm looking to partially as well, or taking a stake in clients' businesses and having more control of. Very interesting. Look, Josh, it's been quite fascinating, interesting. I mean, I've personally learned quite a bit here. Thank you very much for that. And it's been an interesting conversation. I'm looking forward to seeing you more often on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, 100%.
I know you've just started out as much as I know you've just started out putting out LinkedIn and content on LinkedIn, where people can find you. I know you're almost everywhere, but what would be the go-to place?
Yeah, Instagram is really probably the best place that you can find me. It's at Joshi Kobayashi, which I don't know, maybe you can link it in the bio.
Put in the bio.
Yeah, exactly. But Instagram is great place. LinkedIn, I'm not as good at messaging there.
You should be.
I get so many messages on LinkedIn. So I'm just a little bit slower to respond there sometimes. And but LinkedIn, we're definitely ramping up. We're ramping up YouTube as well. So go check out my YouTube channel if you get an opportunity to. A lot of free resources being dropped there as well. So if you're looking to grow and scale an agency, it's a good place to kind of check out every once in a while, because we're dropping some cool stuff. So
you've also got a community going on, right? A close community with as much as I remember, it's not a course, but some sort of like a course plus a community on Facebook.
Yeah. So on Facebook, we call it our inner circle community, just all agency owners. There's a few e-com brands in there as well, but we keep it pretty close knit. It's about 150 people currently, but all agency owners. We do workshops 100% free to join those at least like once a month, if not sometimes like once a week. Like we do a decent amount of workshops in there. And the topics range anything from things on like creative departments to this week we did like an automated onboarding workshop. It could literally anything in the agency space we tend to cover. So it's a really cool community. And then we also have a free it's like a 3 systems course that will teach you about how to build out specific systems for your agency. So like I said, I'm someone that just I try to provide a lot of value and a lot of free resource when we can, knowing that it'll hopefully come back around at some point.
Yeah, I mean, everyone should go check out, connect to Josh on LinkedIn, Insta, and check out his course and communities on Facebook. So, and it's been a pleasure to have you, to talk to you. Hopefully we'll stay connected and
Yeah, 100%.
chat more in the future.
Sounds good. Thanks, Romans.